King.
And we're good. Thanks, Victor. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. I'll keep monitor there. Okay. Welcome to Easy Awakenings. Today, Mr. Russell. How's it going? I will forever call this man Mr. Russell. He was my English professor from high school. He was the most influential teacher I've ever had. I owe a lot of what I am today to this guy. Having that inspiration when I was young. You know, we were talking about that in one of our old podcasts. Having somebody when you're young to kind of, support you, and to kind of cut through a lot of bullshit, but to support you in what, your dreams and times that you feel a little lost. Because high school it's a confusing time. To have someone there that kind of has a positive attitude that can, really provide that sort of emotional and mental support. That's huge. That's huge. I appreciate it, sir.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call that the North Star.
The North Star. Okay.
Everyone needs a North Star. I'm not saying that I was your North Star, but my grandfather was.
He's
my
saying
North Star.
that you were.
I gave it to you.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
It's not you proclaiming anything. It's
right.
You create that bond, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like my background, like martial arts, and they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
And
yes.
I really believe that.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah.
All right. You still teach?
Yes.
Okay. So it's you teach, like, what are your?
I teach psychology now.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what I wanted to do in the first place. But
Oh.
I was a double major, so I was teaching English most of the time.
Okay. Do you teach psychology in a high school?
Yeah.
I don't remember having a psychology course in high school. Did you really?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah. This is more intensive than most because it's a 2-year course.
Okay.
So you have to deal with me for 4 different semesters.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
At the time, though, when I took it,
Yeah.
I really wasn't that present.
Yeah.
To know, I just want to get through it and
Yeah.
let's move on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, my high school psychology class was uninspiring, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I might have my college courses in psychology were uninspiring.
Yeah. Well,
but,
and I think the gentleman that taught it was, it was left to him to teach it, not so much that he was inspired to teach it himself.
Yeah. No, I got you. All right. So you don't teach any English anymore?
I teach a course. Well, it's not really teaching. I'm the extended essay coordinator, so it's basically a high school thesis for IB students.
Oh, okay. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's not teaching it; it's more coordinating their writing of the essay.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
What's this probably be a dumb question? What's an IB student?
International Baccalaureate is it's an international program. It's essentially designed for students who have families that maybe travel around the world, that kind of thing, and they want to be able to take up that same course wherever they go. Ideally, if you're taking psychology on the other side of the world, if you moved to Farmington Hills, you should be able to jump right in again. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's pretty intensive. It's similar to AP. I'd say one of the big differences is that like I said, if you're in the full IB program, you take 2 full years of 6 kind of AP level classes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty cool.
It is. It's intense. It's fun.
Yeah. Wish I kind of had something like that back in the day. I don't remember there being any offerings for.
No, that came within the last 5 years.
Okay. All right. It's funny. We were just talking about one of our other podcasts that, 'cause there's always this notion, like our whole main focus at Easy Awakenings is to spread mental health education.
Mm-hmm.
Psychology is mental health education.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we were saying that
true.
the best place to disperse this information is in the school system.
Right.
It's much easier to get people acclimated to the idea of being introspective, aware of who they are, dealing with their emotions, how the emotions work, that kind of thing, when they're younger and in that stage of life. So,
Unfortunately, I would say Noam Chomsky is kind of famous for the lack of teaching of grammar in schools because he implied that it's done intuitively. You don't have to teach it. Kids learn it just by speaking it.
Oh, okay.
And I think that people make the same assumption about basic mental health,
Yeah.
they will say essentially you should have gotten that as you were growing up in that wonderful normal family that you had where you got all of those skills. Unfortunately, I mean, it's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the way I used to put it, we're all born with this multi-trillion-dollar computer, and most of us use it to play solitaire and then expect to just have complete balance in our lives. So
Our backgrounds, our home situations, that all makes a huge difference in terms of what you're going to be able to soak in. You know, 'cause I mean, I remember being in, the years I had your courses. It was tough just dealing with the assholes in school. That was a massive distraction for me.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I was always felt kind of different in school. I never quite fit in a lot of cases, and as time progressed at that school, anyways, I began to normalize myself with the crowd and that sort of thing. But still, dealing with social circumstances was probably the hardest hurdle to get over.
Yeah.
And then it comes to dealing with the books, being able to focus and that sort of thing. So.
right. Well, the acting out, the assholes as you called them, are acting out on the world based upon their own inadequacies. That's I mean, you don't hurt people unless you're already hurting on the inside.
Sure.
So if you're teaching in a classroom like that, the best way to make sure that those kids aren't hurting each other is to occupy them.
Okay. Okay.
And even make them aware. One of the things that I've always done is if someone is a distraction in my class and, continually a distraction, eventually I don't really get mad as much as I will get stern. I'll take them out in the hallway and I'll say, all right, you can't win this fight because I'm not fighting back. 1, 2, my job is to educate you no matter how much you pay attention, how much you don't pay attention. So you can't, if you get me off my game, you lose because you don't get educated. And so I don't know who you're fighting here. And I've had that discussion, well, pretty much all of my 25 years. Maybe I didn't do it at the beginning, but it's never been unsuccessful. Okay. I've always walked back into the classroom, the kid kind of calmed down.
Okay.
Because I'm not out to win.
Yeah.
I don't need to win because I'm the adult or.
It's not an ego challenge for
no.
you. Yeah.
Well, that's actually I at my age should be aware that my ego is in the way, and as a kid I wouldn't have been aware, so I have to take that into account when I'm dealing with the kid.
Yeah.
I was just like, you can't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
And you were calm when you were saying all this.
You can pick him up, by the way.
He
looks great on camera.
I always stay calm. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think I ever yell. Yeah. I yell during soccer, but yell to the players. I don't really yell at them.
Could you put him in your lap? It looks a little weird with the camera.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. That's Chewy. He likes to be on screen. He's a distraction for class too. That's the kind of kid he is. He's always bullying other dogs around when he's on the streets. But yeah,
he needs some extra attention.
He does.
Yeah.
See, that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's one of those that needs the
kids need the extra love.
Focus.
They need a bigger hug. And
but no. So I mean that when you're in school and you're sort of dealing with those kinds of people, it's easy to vilify them, right? Because you're the victim in so many ways. The older I've gotten, and the more, because I've been a professor myself, when you see it from a more objective perspective, you're able to kind of take a look and see those things. This kid actually has some issues, and then you understand that it's not you never solve a problem by, you don't have to hold them forever, by the way, if you don't want to, but you never solve the problem by turning him into, by punishing this individual, right?
I don't know that I believe in punishment.
Okay.
Consequences, yes, but
yeah.
And even with consequences, I would want to make sure that the consequence is in a positive way.
Sure.
Like the idea of, I don't remember the last time I don't kick kids out of class. I don't remember the last time I sent a kid out in the hallway, but I will send a kid out in the hallway. Basically, it's a high school timeout. But I will say at some point, okay, listen, I want you to stay here. I want you to learn. I want you to get to whatever future you have. Sure. But you can't be a distraction to everybody else. Okay. So when you're ready, come on back, that kind of thing. But I don't remember, I don't generally call parents because I can usually handle it between me and the kid.
Yeah.
I don't know. Most kids just like to be talked to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I had one that was so unruly I had to do anything in particular to that person. But
okay. So you find that communication is the best remedy for these situations?
Well, I mean, all of the students. Okay, so if they have won in the past with an adult, and for them winning is getting a sense of power that they didn't have. Okay. So let's say that they're not good students, and so when they go to school, they feel powerless, and therefore they act out because they will get power. If they get kids laughing with them, that's a source of power. If even if they get me upset, that is a win, and it feels better than feeling nothing, and it feels better than feeling stupid.
Yeah.
So as an adult, you should take into account that when they are acting out, there's probably something behind that. You could call it pain, you could call it just cognitive dissonance, whatever it is, but they don't know how to deal with it in a better way, so they act out.
Okay.
And you can respond to that acting out, but then you're just fighting their ego.
Yeah.
And their ego, I believe they don't understand that the ego is fighting for them.
Sure.
But it's working against them long term. Because the ego wants to win the current battle.
Yeah.
It can't really think about where this is going to take me 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So, and then once the nervous system rises to the challenge, right, they get that cortisol flowing through their veins and adrenaline, and now they get the spotlight effect where everybody's looking at them in the class and seeing how they'll react to the teacher. They don't respond appropriately. And if you as a teacher then respond also inappropriately, it escalates. And you're supposed to be more mature than that. You're supposed to be wiser than that.
And your job is to sort of squash the situation instead of inflaming it.
Right, and don't beat the kid. I don't mean physically. I mean you're not trying to win against the kid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No corporal punishment. But you shouldn't be in it to win in an insult fight.
Yeah.
You're trying to win in the sense that kid gets educated. You get your paycheck, but day in and day out, you keep your stress level down, their stress level down. But I mean, your job is to get them into the future. So
yeah, okay, all right. Do you have a question?
No, I was just saying, and that part of their brain is still developing, right?
Yeah.
So
prefrontal cortex, 23, 24 years of age. I mean. I know my decision-making processes were terrible in my early 20s. So.
Yeah, mine too.
So do you find not only to help them sort of calm down in the moment, do you find that this really shapes? Have you found any situation where this has shaped their future?
Oh, I mean, repeatedly, but.
I like that. That's a confident answer. I like that.
No, I don't know. I don't think you can keep teaching with energy if you don't see results. But. Yeah. This is something that I don't remember how long ago I learned it, but the idea is that as you plant seeds, you have to have some confidence that they're growing, and you also have to be okay with the fact that most of the time you don't get to see it.
Okay.
Right, so like you get a hold of me and you tell me, thanks, etc. But most kids don't do that, not because they're ungrateful, but they're living their lives, and they might even say to someone else, Miss Russell did this. You can't go that way, but it happens often enough that you realize, there's a lot of seeds out there, and here I am in the classroom again, and it just seems like a Monday, but it could be I could plant a seed that day.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, you don't know. Like a kid will say, "Hey, you said this one time," and I'll go, "Oh, I didn't even know that was meaningful."
Yeah.
But that makes it exciting.
Okay.
Like I'm the kind of person that doesn't believe that you should hate Mondays.
Sure.
Because it's kind of nonsense. Like, why would you hate a day?
Right. If you're hating Mondays, you're doing the wrong thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like. It's Monday, so start the week and, I guess maybe find a different career if you hate Monday that much, but I don't know. I try not to make mountains out of molehills. I guess that's, just to use a common phrase, but.
Well, what do you tell kids that, they're looking for a career, they're looking for a direction, they're still developing that part of their brain, they're not really looking that far ahead. And me, I'm probably like on my third career or fourth career, really, since my young adulthood till where I am now. So, how do you guide a kid, that's in that position? Do you think of that at all when you're guiding somebody?
Well, the thing is, and I read this in a book, and I don't remember the book, but I read the especially today, the jobs that we are training kids for don't exist yet. Right, the things that they're going to be building haven't been built yet. And I would say also what really helps, and this is maybe partly what I've really picked up through IB training, because they talk about ways of knowing, and you don't really think about it unless you kind of put it into that kind of a perspective of the different ways that we know the world or understand the world. But one of them is imagination. And imagination, something that I use the example of the iPhone. People working on the iPhone now, when they were born, the iPhone didn't exist. When they went to school, the iPhone didn't exist. And now they're working on that, or they'll be working on other technology. So what do you teach them? You teach them not what to know, but how to learn. Right? And so, a student is 16, 17, 18, and you say, where are you going to college? What is your major going to be? They get kind of like perturbed or upset. I don't know. And I say, that's great. Why would you? What businesses do you know? You know your parents, maybe what they do. You haven't really seen them work that much. You kind of know what teachers do, but I know that when I became a teacher, teaching was much different than what I saw teachers do. So how would you know at 17 or 18 or 19 what you want to do unless you've really engaged in a passion? How would you know? It's not my job. I always say it's not my job to make you me. It's my job to help you become you.
Okay.
Right. So I don't want you to become me, because I would like you to be better than I am. Like people who made Einstein, there wasn't an Einstein that made him. So
see, that's okay. I'm going to use that though. There's this documentary I saw. It's a really good documentary. It's called In Search of Greatness. And it's about Wayne Gretzky, Jerry Rice, Pele, right? The great soccer player. And it's so amazing that a lot of what they talked about was what you just said. You said imagination, creativity, and how that seems to be being sucked out of the school systems in a way, But they talked about it through sports. How things are just so darn regimented in sports now that they're trying to create models of previous people. You know what I mean? That Wayne Gretzky said, if I wasn't allowed to be me,
there would be no Wayne Gretzky.
Be creative.
Right.
He wouldn't have been able to achieve what he achieved.
Exactly.
Because he was able to think outside
the box, break boundaries.
Exactly. Of what he was brought up with. And his father also encouraged that a lot.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that, though, is that without discipline, you also don't have direction.
Right.
So there's a fine balance there where you say, okay, and you people have to be not brave enough. They have to be given kids have to be given the permission to test those boundaries. Challenge those boundaries. Screw up. Write poorly. Go ahead and write poorly until you write in a way that you enjoy. And when I say poorly is only defined by other people don't understand what you're talking about.
Okay.
Right? If you're writing and the words don't mean anything to anyone, then maybe that's poor writing, or maybe someday it'll be amazing. I don't know. But go ahead and take some chances. Fail successfully is the way I like to put it.
So here's my things. We often talk about the school system. When it was created, it was sort of created to produce, efficient factory workers in a sense. But the things that you talk about are quite unique. They're very inspiring, and then you're the kind of teacher that leads people to do that. But the majority of teachers, you don't get that from them.
People are.
What do you think?
Well, as far as other teachers, I don't know. It's
not to slam your colleague.
No, and I wouldn't because people that maybe I watch somebody teach the way that I don't agree with, and or I don't teach that way.
Sure.
What'll happen is I'll see that particular teacher with a student who has been inspired by that teacher.
Yeah.
And I will say their way reaches someone.
Okay.
Right? Like, I think one of the problems that we have with education is, like, say, everyone would like all of the English teachers to teach the same way, which means you lose maybe the ability to teach. Maybe you are the one that inspires that person, this person or that person, and then this other teacher inspires those people. If everybody's doing the same thing, then I think you miss some people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't have that cookie cutter kind of idea. All right, so to me, the best education has always been, what do you want to know? Let's learn that.
Okay.
All right, and inspire curiosity.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what you want to know today, right? Well, maybe not how to make meth or something like that. Whatever you want to know today, let's learn that.
Okay.
So what are you curious about? And then inspire that curiosity. And once they know enough about that, and they say, okay, what are you curious about today?
Yeah.
But we can't afford to teach that way. If we're going to teach that way professionally, you'd have to have one teacher for like every 5 kids.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And even that would be difficult because each kid would come to you today and say, I want to learn this. And you go, okay, how can I help that kid learn that?
Right.
That's very labor intensive kind of educating people.
Right.
So the way we do it instead is some people someplace decide on a curriculum.
Yeah.
And they think this is the curriculum that's going to prepare kids for future X. And what is that? Going to college. People go to college and then they can't get a job. People get, what are you going to do? I'm going to go into business. What are you going to make? I don't know. I want to make money. So how do you prepare them for that? Or do they have to know math? Do they have to know how to? I hate English, and it's like, wait a minute, that's the language you think with. That's the language that you converse with other humans with. How can you hate that very key aspect of yourself? It's because they see it as this discipline that they don't get, as opposed to something they could play with. Play with wording, and something that people who do music, even kids who start rapping in school, they start to see language as fun, but they don't think of it as language. Like, that's not English.
It's not the class.
Right. Well, it's ungrammatical sometimes, and so they don't think of that as English, but it's definitely English, and it's definitely poetry. But they see it as this other thing. Okay. And sometimes teachers would do well to see that as also playing with language. It's better to have a kid reading comic books than not reading.
Yeah. So what were we going to say?
No, go ahead.
Well, so how do you get the students? Because I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, people will see we'll take the example of the kid that likes rap, right? He's very engaged in it. He's utilizing the language quite effectively in his field, but how do you get them to then tie it to the endeavor of, I got to take some tests and learn about as a screenwriter, I've written a few screenplays and a few novels. One of the greatest lessons I had to learn, and this was more towards story than anything, because you first start off as a writer, you're like, I'm just gonna write. I'm gonna write to my heart's content. And then you take a look at it, and you may like it, but a lot of people are like, I don't really get what's going on. So then you take a look, you take a step back and you look at your skill, your craft, and you're like, well, maybe let me learn the spine, right? Like, every human's different, but we all have a very similar spinal structure. Learn the spine, and then learn to change that spine into what you want to. So how do you do that with these kids that are trying to be creative and do their thing, but then tie them to the importance of English class?
Well, I don't know if you can, because, as an example, let's say that you've got 5 classes of 25 to 30 kids each. And you want to inspire each kid to his unique or her unique future. We don't have time for it. You're going to be in my class for 55 minutes. So what you do is you try to be inspiring to a group of 30 kids, and you will inspire some, and others you will lose, because you don't have enough time. You just don't have enough time to be that for everyone. So some kids will walk out of your class going, oh my God, Russell just rambles, and another kid will go, oh, that was the most amazing thing ever. You can't be everything for everyone.
Okay.
You cannot try to be everything for everyone, because you'll burn yourself out. What you try to do is let them know that the solid parts of life are not always as solid as they seem.
Okay.
And even adults know this. Like I'll say to my students, you shouldn't look to adults for models of what should be. Only because we know the world is kind of messed up. So what we're trying to do is teach you to help us fix it.
Okay.
And we need your new kind of thinking because teenagers are more innovative. Yeah. They'll look at what adults are doing and go, okay, that's lame.
Sure.
You know, like I think of the word trifling.
Yeah, yeah.
They make up the word trifling, and I'm like, that means small, right? And they go, no, that means nasty. And I go, since when? But the point is this, that the teens, because they're thinking, oh, these old people don't know what they're talking about, humanity is always reinventing itself.
Okay.
Because the kids come in, you know, like holes in jeans were big in the 80s and now they're big again now.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks they invented it. But the point is that kids are trying to be different for a reason.
Sure.
Because different allows us to maybe become better and innovate. And instead of us saying, that's not how you do it, we should say, okay, why do we do it that way? You know about the they as a neutral pronoun, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So for years I fought that because in my head, saying they for a singular person, I just do mental flip-flops, right? And now, though, over the years, I've gotten to the point where I realize, okay, people don't always identify with he if they're called a he. Okay. Or like if let's say I'm writing for something for my soccer teams, and I want to use it for both of them.
Sure.
Should I say the player needs to do his and then use that also for the girls? Or should I use him sometimes and her sometimes?
Sure.
Or should I just use they?
That's added a whole layer of complexity to your situation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if I write it for the guys and the girls, and then I use it for both, and I say he. Am I offending the girls? I'm not really that worried about offending them. But am I also kind of leaving them out?
Sure. You
know, tacitly or not. I don't know. For me, it's understanding that structure's good.
Yeah.
Because without structure, you have anxiety.
Yeah.
But structure is also limiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to have structure.
Yeah.
You know, and you talk about martial arts, you want to have maybe understanding of basic structural martial arts, but sometimes doing the unexpected thing is what gives you the edge. Right, exactly. So, I mean, you want to have structure, and then within that structure, sometimes you play with the edges and you get something cool and unique.
Sure.
Well, the whole cookie cutter thing, you know, I kind of want to explore that. Like, where did that come from? You know, why is it so important that we create cookie cutter versions of, you know, people? Is it safe? Is it is it fear? You know, are we fear? Is it a money maker? You see it in Hollywood. They're always trying to recreate movies.
I think it's all of what you just said.
Well, it is. It depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
Like for most, I would say one of the things that we know is that as people get older, they generally get conservative. And when we say conservative, we don't mean necessarily religious or whatever you want to think of it.
Yeah.
We mean that they say, oh, those good old days. I wish we could go back to those good old days. And what they really want is stability. Right? And just that idea that when our nervous systems are in an unstable situation, it's anxiety. And we don't like anxiety, so we want to return to a safe, to a norm.
Sure. Even
if that norm has limits. You know, so if somebody says, "Hey, let's go back to the good old days," and somebody else says, "Wait, there was racism in the good old days." Not for me.
Right.
You know, and but people want to go back to safe and simple.
I know for me, like, and I share this with people, but me as I'm 45, and I find that fear is more something that comes up more. Because I believe people, as they get older, you know, they become more physically vulnerable. So then that plays out, of course, in the way they see the world. You know, I mean, there are studies about this where actually, as you know, people get more and have more, they start to see threats where threats don't even exist.
You got nothing to lose, right? You're okay with whatever.
Because like actually having less is more. Because you know what I mean? Like everything is kind of firing. Your senses are all firing. You know, you're more energetic. But if you have everything just sort of handed to you, you're just sitting there and all your senses and all the things you were gifted with are just all falling apart at that point.
Right.
And then you're worried about people stealing your stuff or wanting your stuff. There's a couple of different ways I look at that. One is that idea, and I think I first heard this in Fight Club.
Okay.
You know, the movie Fight Club. It's that idea of getting stuff and having stuff. And I, you know, even for myself, I've found that I don't need stuff as much as I need experiences. Like I own a camper, and the camper is less important to me than the camping.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because I'm going to remember the experiences with my nieces and my nephews, my brothers, etc. And the camper allows us to do that in a different way, in a unique way. But the issue is that it's the experience that I really want.
It's sort of relatable to like you see a lot of brides that freak out on their wedding day.
Sure.
You know, you think, well, this is supposed to be the happiest day of your life, but you're so concerned with, did the catering go right? Are the cameras in the right place? Is this doing this? Right. You're not enjoying. I can't say, and I do wedding photography. Enigma Studios wedding photography looks great. Check it out. But no, as a wedding photographer, it's so funny to see brides are so stressed out. The groom is typically relaxed. It's, hey, my friends are here, my pa's here, ma's here. Let's just eat some food and dance. Gonna be a good night. Right. The brides are like looking around and checking over their shoulders. And I think, you know, typically because women are placed in charge of, you know, coordinating the wedding, so there's a lot to do with that. But then it's this thing of like you can't enjoy the experience. It's about making sure the stuff is good, making sure the stuff doesn't go wrong, and that just takes you away from. It's supposed to be this beautiful experience of joining together with your partner.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of, you know, if everything's right and the structures are up and the walls are perfect and all that stuff, everyone then should be able to enjoy themselves. But you could see that's not always the case.
And it's kind of easy to say that's about men and women, but really it's about norms and values. Because if, you know, like you don't see guys going around and comparing their wedding rings, you know, holding their hands out. And it's not that men are better or worse. They just they learn that through the norms. Guys don't do that, and women do. At least that's what little girls see women do, and so then they want to do that.
We do it in other ways.
Well, but then there are some women that grow up with different norms and values, and then they're less apt to do that. But it's think about like what it is that we value in life, and then understand if we're off base as a society. And just as an example, people will say, God, what's wrong with these kids today? You know, they'll say, Russell, you're teaching these kids. Aren't they terrible? I go, no, they're not. They're just like we were. And I say, if they are terrible, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like the adults never say, you know, look what we did to these kids. They say, what's wrong with these kids today? It's like, we're making them.
Millennials get a lot of flack these days. And it's you always hear about that. The millennial generation, they expect everything to come to them. I'm like, well, but who raised them? Wait a minute.
Well, that's the thing that comes along with trying to give your kids what you didn't have. That's the negative side of giving them what they didn't have. 'Cause then you get it. You don't have to really hunger for it. Right. Yeah.
Well, if you grew up and commercials told you that having the stuff would be make you happier. And you never had the stuff, and you weren't happy. Then you have kids. You're like, I'm going to get them the stuff. And maybe the kid would have said, wow, it'd be nice to also see you every once in a while. You know, like thanks for the stuff. But can you actually? You got me this mitt. Can you throw the ball with me now?
Exactly.
You know, like I love the mitt. The mitt's awesome, but you know, could you throw the ball with me? And like, it's not that parents don't want to do that. It's just that sometimes they think, no, I've got to work 60 hours so you can have the stuff because I don't want you to grow up and have kids and say I never got you the stuff. And give me the experiences, not the stuff. Give me, you know. Be my scoutmaster or, you know, coach my team, that kind of thing. Don't just get the stuff.
Well, but maybe though if they work less and they would have have to provide, and then they could spend time
But that's
and they would be
kind
less
of un-American,
stressful.
right? That's, It's like, what, work less? What?
If you're not stressing yourself out to the point you're going to die at the end of the day, you're not working hard enough.
Well, and that's exactly where maybe something like drugs and alcohol becomes part of the norm.
Sure.
Because your nervous system's all ramped up, and you haven't really learned relaxation. So the quickest way is some sort of a intoxication.
Well, that and our society preps us to accept that as the solution. I mean, if you think about it, since birth, the solution is always some form of chemical, right? It's some drug or a drink. It's promoted
outside of
yourself, and it's promoted as normal. This is what everyone should do. It's an uphill battle. I mean, I personally don't drink alcohol, and I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking alcohol. But every time I tell people I don't drink alcohol, they're like, "Why not? Are you a recovering alcoholic? Are you this?" I was like, "No, I've had more alcohol in NyQuil than I have in any sort of drink or sip that I've ever taken."
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing for people to understand.
Right.
And it's because you're not only are you stepping outside of the norms, but it's just everyone wants the miracle pill. We want the miracle solution. You know?
Yeah.
I'm sure you might deal with
shortcuts.
this. Exactly. And in class when I was teaching, and I taught overseas in China, the question it was, mistakenly framed in such a way, but it was always, "Can you give me English?" It's like I can't open your brain up and insert English inside of you. You have to. It's a process.
Sure.
And the more you enjoy the process, the easier it is to learn anyway. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I found this as a student and as a teacher. I've been teaching martial arts for a while now, and I find that I think students are really they're hard on themselves, and they're really afraid to make mistakes because they don't want. I think it's because they don't want to be judged in some way harshly. But I've had some instructors and teachers in school that are really kind of mean when they correct you.
Judgmental.
Oh no, don't do it like that.
Right.
That sort of thing. And even sometimes using the word stupid or, idiot or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you comment on that?
So Carol Dweck is, fairly famous psychologist, quite famous psychologist.
Okay.
And her, she talks a lot about the idea is don't praise ability.
Okay.
Don't say, "Oh, you're such a good girl," or "Wow, you're great at that," but say, "Wow, you must have worked hard at that." And then make the kid understand that. See, most people don't know about neuroplasticity. They don't know that, like I coach soccer, and I talk about the idea that the only reason your left foot can't kick is because you don't kick with it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you did it often enough, your cerebellum, your motor cortices, everything would wire for it, and you'd suddenly be able to kick. Well, not suddenly. You'd work to the point where you're able to kick. If you learn to type, it's the same thing. Your fingers learn that dexterity over time, and it's because you did it, right? It isn't, "Wow, you're a terrible typist." It's, "Wow, you haven't worked on that very much, have you?
Yeah.
Maybe you should put more time into it."
We're big fans of neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
It's key for almost everything in life. Especially the older you get, people kind of feel like, "Oh, I've learned. My brain is where it is. I'm not going to be able to adjust this."
Right.
But it's important, and I think if people could just understand that their brain is, it can rewire itself. It can adjust. It might take a little extra effort, but no, I think that's an underdeveloped field of study that needs to be explored a lot more. I think so.
Well, but most people aren't going to learn it. They're not going to take the time to learn it. So what you do with a kid is you say, you can get to your. Let me start that again. You're never going to reach your ideal self because there's too many variables, too many things that get in the way. The standard American diet gets in a lot of people's ways, right? Because they don't know that they're eating poorly. They don't even know that that is eating poorly, right? So if you're not putting the proper molecules into your system, you can't maximize who you are.
Sure.
That's one of. Actually, that's a multiplicity of variables that get in the way of you becoming your perfect self.
Sure.
However, it's that idea of working to become your perfect self, like shooting for that perfect self, knowing that you're always going to fall short, and it's still kind of cool that you can get as close as possible.
Okay.
You can become as good as you can be and still never get close to your ideal self. You'd have to think about, to be your ideal self, you'd have to get just the right amount of sleep every day, just the proper micronutrients every day. You're not short on calcium or magnesium any day, right? You'd have to do everything perfectly. That would be a lot of stress trying to get that all right.
Yeah.
And therefore it wouldn't be the perfect life. You see what I'm saying? You can't really get there, but it's that idea of, isn't it cool that every day I get up and I try to be my best self, knowing that when I get to the end of the day, I'm going to have made some mistakes, and tomorrow after I wake up, I'm going to try to do it again.
Okay. And
it makes it a little bit exciting to know that you can try to maximize it. And maybe you have just a terrible crap day where you're just lazy and you don't feel like doing anything, and you can knock yourself all you want, or you can say, all right, let's reload. Next day, let's go. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids aren't taught that. They're taught, you're stupid, you're smart, oh, I didn't like reading, so I understand why you don't like reading. You're just not wired to like reading. It's not you don't read, therefore you can't read, therefore you don't, they simply think you're either good at it or you're not. And for a lot of parents, unfortunately, they think, if I couldn't do it, I really don't want you doing it, because then what do I look like? So if let's say a parent hasn't been educated, maybe they don't inspire a kid to be educated, because they don't even think, like, I didn't need that, you don't need that. So where does the kid get it from? That's where it's kind of nice if they have another adult that says, hey, you can do this.
Definitely.
But
you're lucky, man. I wish I had you.
I know, man. I know.
Like, where are you, Mr. Russell?
We all need a Mr.
That's
Russell.
awesome.
We all need him.
That's why, you should be on podcasts, and
I'm
others
thinking,
should be on podcasts. And,
We do some speaking engagements. We'll bring you out if you got the time. Oh yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah,
but I want to
share it with as many people as we can.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I wanted to ask you. So we talked a little bit earlier about you say that kids today are basically the same as they've always been, but we're starting to see issues that pop up. I was actually in school. I was having your class around that same time, anyways, when Columbine happened. And this is a big fascination for me in terms of the psyche of the human being, what can drive someone to that point. And it's not just school shootings. It's just this whole mass shooting thing is going on, and it's getting worse. And people seem to be, that's a viable solution for a lot of folks. People seem to be edgier these days as well. So are you seeing that in the classroom? Have you noticed any differences?
Luckily not seeing it to that extent, but like with the IB program, it's a great example. Kids, a lot of times kids that are taking that program have parents who are, I won't say helicopter, but they're more helicopter. In other words, over my years teaching, I have definitely seen that the honors and AP and IB level classes, when we do open house nights, the classrooms are full of parents. And when we do the other classes that aren't honors level, sometimes you see 5 parents. One time I almost had no parents. And it's not that they're worse parents, but they're less engaged parents. Right? So they, I love my parents, but my parents, I don't think even saw a senior year report card. Because they were so engaged with just paying the bills and getting through. So I wasn't a great student, and it was partly because I wasn't being pushed. I was just kind of getting through and making sure everybody stayed off my back. So I wasn't inspired to do more than that. It wasn't anybody's fault. I was just getting through it. So I think I understand that. So with a lot of parents who are pushing their kids to be at that level, it gets overwhelming for the kids. But the thing about it is the kid, like the kids that I guess figure it out, and I don't know how they do it, they figure out that you can be excellent without being perfect. And that's the problem for a lot of them. I was talking about Carol Dweck earlier. One of the people that she worked with or talked about quite a bit, one of her books, was John McEnroe. And John McEnroe was an excellent tennis player. But he even wondered how much better he could have been if he wasn't so busy trying to be perfect. Because perfection is the enemy of good, or the enemy of improvement. In a lot of cases, because nobody. That's why like I said earlier, you cannot be perfect. So it's a how do I want to put that? It's not a good goal.
Okay.
Right? Like, you don't want perfect. You want to improve and allow the neuroplasticity to happen, grow, change, etc. But don't try for perfect, because then you, like, say, for example, the innovation we were talking about earlier. If you're trying for perfect, what is it?
Yeah.
What is perfect?
Right.
Did you miss this other good thing because you had this one mold of what perfection is?
Yeah.
You didn't notice this other thing that could have been a better way of doing it, or maybe a more creative way of doing it, and you missed it. So for a lot of kids, they go into schools and they're thinking there is a perfect future, and it's got to be through a 4-year university. And if it's not, like a lot of kids, Michigan or bust. Like if they're living in Michigan, it's like U of M or bust. And I'm like, I say, you do understand that you want to go to U of M so badly because you hear people talking about going to U of M. Right? And they say U of M is the thing. And it's like, why not this university in this state? Or why not no college? Why not, do a Mark Zuckerberg or a Steve Jobs? Why not that? But they do what we all do, and they see what's normal and what adults value and what their friends value, and they don't want to face the pressure of doing the unusual thing.
To me, it would seem that that's less pressure, at least for me it was, than being perfect. Anyone that I know that was like an overachiever and very wanted to be perfect, they always looked like they were always having the least amount of fun. Anywhere that when I would see them.
Right.
So,
but when you get together at family gatherings,
they
they say, look what little Bobby over here is doing.
Dang it, Mr. Russell.
Like, there's one of the things I love about, I teach health psychology purposely because I didn't want my students to think that you only need to know psychology when you're abnormal. Right? And that
Is that
idea,
what it's called? Health psychology?
Yeah.
That's what you call it.
I had the option of teaching health psychology, relationship psychology, abnormal psychology, and developmental psychology. And I chose health and relationships because I wanted my students to understand that psychology isn't just about, I'm broken, can you help me fix it? It's more about how to stay functional, productive,
a healthy state of mental health. Exactly.
And so, like, that idea of finding out what are the variables that cause us to go off the path we'd like. Which is funny because sometimes the path we want to go on is not our best path. But that's the thing that's interesting about it. Anyhow, the kids will go into the IB course, and it's intensive. And some kids, I'm not going to say they're not designed for it, but if they go into the IB courses, then they don't get to, let's say, for example, they should have been musicians. They can't really take music if it's not offered. So they don't become musicians, but they become IB students, and then they get their scholarship money, but then they never do music again. Well, there go our musicians. You see what I'm saying? And maybe they're stressed out partly because they're not doing something they love. They're doing something they're supposed to do.
That's a struggle.
Well, that's it. So, like, the people who are telling us this is what you should do, and then they're wrong. It's kind of like in the 90s when they told us, don't eat any fats, go ahead and eat the noodles. And everybody's getting heavier, and you're like, well, you were wrong? You're the expert. Well, how can you be wrong? But people, they are wrong. Or, you were talking about earlier about, why people want to keep using oil or gas or etc. Well, partly it's because they're convinced that the people like them, the other conservatives, are pro-coal, pro-oil, etc. And if I say I'm not, then I'm one of those liberals. They don't want to be in that other group. That's one reason. The other reason is maybe they work in coal or they work in oil. But there's a lot of reasons why. Anyhow, back to what we were talking about. The idea with these IB students is they're blowing up with stress. And that's not good. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to learn. Our goal as teachers is supposed to be, all right, let's reach for that high academic level, but then let's also realize you can't keep this up through, let's say you want to be a doctor. You can't keep this up through your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, your doctor. You can't do this.
Yeah.
You're not going to live past 45.
Yeah.
If you keep this up.
Sure.
But they are taught, no, it's got to be rigorous. And it's almost like it has to be not fun in order for you to be inspired.
Yeah.
To get that point.
It's so funny. That's ingrained in all of us at a young age almost. If you're having fun and trying to make a living for yourself, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You should feel guilty for enjoying your career.
Right.
Unless you're just in there sweating. You have to meet all the requirements. You have to be sweating profusely, stressed out, soon to die at like 45, 50, and then you can have a little fun at your job. Maybe then you can enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, wait till you retire, then you'll have fun.
Yeah, that's the worst. That's the worst. People they save all of their money. They save all of that. They wait for all the fun. Let me go to Cedar Point when I'm 65, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not gonna enjoy as much. It's harder to climb a mountain when you're 65 years old than when you're 30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
And by the same token, there are people who try to have fun in ways that run up their credit card bills.
Right.
Again, buying the stuff.
Yeah.
And then they find, like, I got all this stuff now, and I'm still not happy.
Yeah.
Maybe I need more stuff.
Yeah.
So I still go back to what I said earlier. I think it's the experiences.
Sure.
And that means, don't buy presents, make presents. Or don't buy presents, give an experience.
Yeah.
Because then you'll always have that memory. You're not going to have just another thing to throw in the dump.
It's funny is when we're young, when you're a kid, you don't care about the most expensive thing. At a certain point, you kind of do, but typically when you're young, like kids that are 3 and 4,
but even that you're kind of taught to care about that.
Sure,
more, right?
but like you like sticks,
Yeah.
The happiest thing you could see a child, build him a box, call it a spaceship, let him write on it, cut some holes in it. He'll have way more fun in that than a Power Wheel half the time.
Yeah, I used to take my dad's tools.
Yeah.
He'd let me and I would give you oh, this looks like a spaceship. And
Yeah,
this looks like an airplane. And I would use that,
Yep.
having all these other plastic toys.
Yeah.
And I believe, and I wasn't raised this way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't raised this way, but I believe that if you take a kid and you stick an iPad in front of him when he's 1, he loses that opportunity to be creative. Like he can swipe.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he can't,
It's given to him.
Yeah, he's just a passive watcher. Now I have my niece; she'll dance to some of the songs and things like that. But I don't know if you lose your creativity that way. I do know that sometimes when I was just told get outside, you're annoying me.
Yeah.
I did those things. So we
you
did
went
creative
out,
things.
you built little forts in the dirt or something. You'd make sailboats out of sticks.
Yeah,
you explore the world a little bit.
Like I would play act like he's Superman. And then we'd make up little scenarios and stories.
Yeah.
Right.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
The hard thing is getting parents who want to take the time to do that.
Sure.
A lot do. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Well, my parents didn't. They didn't have. I have a whole huge house. I've been a house full of 8 kids. You know, and we're just kind of brought up to go outside anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't have time to do that stuff with us.
Right.
Yeah.
But you had 8 kids, so that works.
Right.
When you got 8 kids together, that's it.
Yeah.
I feel bad for kids who don't have other kids to play with or parents that will do those kinds of things with them.
Yeah. No, that's a shame. I think a lot of parents too don't really, they're so stressed out they have no time for it to begin with. Like they get off of work and it's,
And maybe, I'm not saying they are, but maybe their values are off.
Sure.
Maybe if they worked a few fewer hours, then they would they'd be happier.
Instead of trying to get the BMW, maybe get the Ford and let your kid, take your kid out a couple times.
Right.
No, that's true. That's true.
It's hard to know, though.
Yeah. No, it's a tough thing. I mean, it's easy for us to kind of look at some of these situations and go, even if you are a parent and you can relate, I've done a good job with my kid, but this parent over here is crappy.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just life is it's an interesting thing. It brings us places that we don't expect. And as much as we want to be, like you were saying, the ideal, the perfect version of ourselves, there's
nobody gets there.
No one gets there, and it almost seems like the harder you try to get there, the worse off you are,
The thing is, there's got to be a flexibility.
Sure.
Knowing that, like I said earlier, you can't miss good.
Yeah.
Because perfection is taking all your attention.
Right.
You just can't, because something else might arise and you completely don't notice it.
Yeah. But in the same turn, you just can't leave it all up to chance. You do have to put yourself and try for a bit more.
Well, I'll put it to you this way too. There are some people who have done amazing things by being singularly focused.
Sure.
And they're known for those things that they did. But you wouldn't, in a lot of cases, trade your life for theirs.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they did this amazing thing, and maybe they suffered for it when they produced it, and they're known in the history books. But you wouldn't want to trade your quality of life for their quality of life.
Kind of like that saying, don't meet your heroes. Because you'll see the reality behind it. There's I call it Disneyfication. Everyone takes a look at like these characters, Martin Luther King or Abraham Lincoln, and you see the wonderful, amazing, truly godlike feats almost that these people are able to achieve. Ooh, excuse me. Swallow a little something there, but but then you take a look at their personal lives. It's like, maybe Martin Luther King had a couple of extramarital affairs. It's like, well, how does that take away from what he really did? But when people see that, they have this illusion of what he was. And the possibility of him, of Abraham Lincoln taking a poop in the morning, you know what I'm saying? That takes away from that allure of this character with the top hat, and he says everything perfectly.
It's funny you said that, because that was one of the ways that I put it. I say even the Pope has to poop.
Yeah, exactly.
It isn't to take away from that. It's just that idea that, like, when you are an excellent person, you also occasionally have acid reflux.
Exactly. I always ask that question, and everyone tries to be careful about religious talks, but I always ask that question about it. So, like, if some of these religious deities were, living on Earth and they had human forms, you probably had to wake up in the morning and take a pee. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, there were imperfections. Was he watching out for pimples on his face when he was a teenager? These kinds of things. So that's just... there's always reality behind what our expectations rarely meet reality.
Right.
It's always a different story, but you can still enjoy and you can still do some good, with the reality that you get. So
yeah, I always like what I've read about the Buddha, and the idea that he would essentially say, somebody would say, "Tell me how to be you," and he's saying, "Don't be me, be you."
Yeah.
Be, and that's what I was. He would. That's what he would say. He says, "I became one.
Sure.
I'm not. It's not the same for you as it is for me. What is your way?"
Yeah.
So, I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
For the main reason that I don't think any one religion captures.
Yeah.
At all. Right. So I think it's, for me, better to learn from all of them if they have something to teach.
Yeah. Well, that always kind of, that's another area of interest for me, because people always ask, like, what's your religion, this sort of thing. That's almost a silly question for me to have to answer, for anyone to really have to answer. The notion that anyone can capture the idea of God is such a grandiose sort of notion. The human mind can't really put that in a bottle. The second you do that, you're limiting the potential of what it is, and then to sort of say that we know, the extent of what that word really means. I think that connecting to it by all means.
It's like perfect, that idea of perfect.
Exactly.
It's always an image. It's something that you have to live up to.
Yeah.
And those images are always limiting.
Yeah.
Anyways, and keeps you from growing.
From what I understood of what the Buddha said, he said essentially, "Don't make me a religion.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to be." But
sorry, Siddhartha.
Exactly. And then he was made. But the point is that people, it's kind of like what we said earlier.
Yeah.
Kids in high school are looking for a path.
Yeah.
And if you tell them it's through college, they're going to try like crazy to get there. And if you tell them it's got to be through a U of M, they're going to try like crazy to get there. And then they get through U of M and they can't get a job. And they go, "You lied to me."
I got a cousin. He went to U of M. He's like, I could only work at Meyer.
Well, the thing is, it's not U of M isn't the problem, right?
Sure.
The problem is that sometimes you sell a bill of goods. Like, if we say to people, "How do you get to the perfect future?" If you ask someone, "How do you get to the perfect future?" and that person doesn't have a perfect present, but they can tell you how to get to the perfect future, I don't understand how they're, it's like I said, don't make them into you. Help them become themselves, and you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Or what that could be.
The present's never going to be good enough.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and to get to that, to even strive for being the perfect you, it takes development. And I think that's something that is sort of being eroded amongst, whether it's youngsters or even in our culture. It's that real embracing of developing who we are. Instead, it's like, if I follow A, B, and C, I'll get to D, but that's not the case.
Right.
The same cousin I was talking about, I won't mention his name here, but I remember he was talking about talking to girls and this, and it was like he would calculate, how would I talk to a girl? How would I get a girlfriend? I took her out, I said this to her, I did this, but I didn't get a girlfriend. She wouldn't come back home with me. And it's like, well, you have to develop a sense of personality. You have to be personable. You have to understand what this other person is looking for and learn how to relate. There's the dynamics of human interactions, period, are complicated. And that goes into almost everything. When you're going to work, looking for a job, you might look great on paper, but if you walk into if you don't know how to communicate with someone in a job interview, if you don't know how to present yourself and really know what you're doing, even if you were to get a good grade in school, what good are you to anyone? You have to really be able to develop yourself and to learn, to go. It's my enterprise text message. But to go through all of that and then to be able to get the outcomes that you're looking for. You have to learn how to fail. Failure is crucial to that.
Well, they talk about, one of the things in social psychology they talk about is what they call uncertainty avoidance. Yeah. And some cultures are high uncertainty avoidant, and some are low uncertainty avoidant. So, say, for example, if a culture is high uncertainty avoidant, they will say, no, you cannot go out with your friends, you cannot date, you must study, because we don't want the uncertainty of your future at 25 or 30 years of age. Yeah. They're not wrong. They're not wrong, because if that kid has a nice home and a family and everything between 25 and 30 years of age, then that was right in a way. But if they can't look back on their teen years and say, yes, I went to homecoming, and yes, I played a sport and did those kinds of things, then they were also wrong. Right? Yeah. So you sacrifice in both cases. Sure. The universe, I read this someplace a long time ago, the universe was not designed to satisfy your needs. So when you take that into account, and then you put 7.5 billion people on the planet who all have their own desires and needs that don't coincide with yours all the time, you should walk through every day knowing that you should feel very fortunate when your day goes fairly well, knowing that there's so many variables where others' desires and needs don't match your own, and yet you had a pretty good day. But we're not being told that. We're told there is a perfect future. This is what it looks like. This is how you get there. And then when you go through all of it, like you said, you're 25 years old, you get a secondary management position, you're barely supporting your family, and you're like, this isn't fair. And I know this is a big segue, but you won't go all the way back to you're talking about Columbine. How are these shootings happening? Sure. The kids, I don't know. It's that's a wild topic, but the idea that maybe they're feeling that they're being sold a bill of goods. Sure. Or like in the case of the division between the different parties, they're told day in, day out that this is the enemy. And you feel in your heart, in your mind, you feel like there is something wrong with the world. You don't maybe understand that it's how you feel about your life, but if somebody says, no, it's these people, they're doing it. Now you've got a little bit more certainty, right? That feels better than I'm a loser. All right, or that feels better than, oh, my life isn't working out, it must be something I'm doing. If you can say, no, it's these people. And I love what they're doing now with the news. They are not saying the people's names, because that's another thing. If like that idea of a sense of power, I'm going to be known now.
Immortalized, right?
And that is a need. It is a need. Like, what am I now? I'm a nobody. Nobody cares about me. Nobody loves me. But I could become a somebody if I did this. And there's a sense of power in that. We all need that. We all need a sense of, I mean something.
Right. Validation, a sense of control. And like I always say, a lot of these circumstances, these people probably have very little control in their lives. They feel like they're kind of getting shit on in a lot of ways. And they were sold that bill of goods, right? And then all of a sudden they get out and they're like, well, none of this is happening. Wait a minute. Who's to blame? Who do I blame for this? You know, it's these people over here in the Walmart. Let me slaughter random babies or, something real silly. Well, that's nuts. But I want to ask you, too, what's a guy like you do for fun? You got all this great knowledge. You're helping people out all the time. How do you balance that out? That's like you seem...
What's, I don't know how to say this in another way. If I tell you that I spend pretty much every day working on my classes and on my soccer teams and on my family, and that's fun, they're like, well, when do you relax? I go, do I need to?
Okay.
Do I need to do that? Like this weekend, I'm planning to go to my brother's place and working on his yard.
Yeah.
And he'll say to me, really wish you didn't feel like you had to come here and work.
Mr. Russell, I am putting a pergola together right now in my yard. I could really use
And that's it. If people ask,
if
people ask, I'd rather help them than watch a rerun.
Okay.
I don't want to look back on that day and say, wow, that rerun was the same. it was the same as it was. I mean, I would rather say, it's like I said with Ham and the Camper. The camper's experiences.
Yeah.
I go to my brother's. I could go there and we could watch a movie.
Yeah.
And I might remember watching the movie at my brother's place, but I'm definitely going to remember helping him with his yard or things that I've done, for people, with people.
Yeah.
I took my soccer team camping last weekend, and people were thankful. Oh, thank you for doing this. And they're like, "Well, when do you have to have time for fun?" I go, "That was fun."
Yeah.
I took them camping, and that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? So, like, my job is fun.
Yeah.
My jobs are fun between soccer and I love. Like, people say, what have you read recently? Have you read any novels? You say, I don't read novels. I read psychology.
Okay.
And love it.
Okay.
I love it. Most of what I teach now,
Yeah.
they didn't know when I took psychology.
Yeah.
So I've had to do all that kind of research to be able to teach my classes. So I don't know. I do those things. Fix up my house.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite to read?
Favorite psychologist? I like I call him Bobby Sapolsky. I like Robert Sapolsky.
Okay.
I like Carol Dweck. I talked about Martin Seligman. There's quite a few I could get into that are inspiring. A lot of the newer ones are getting into more fMRI research, like looking into the brains and seeing how they're operating. That's interesting to me, but I don't know. I'm fascinated by the whole thing. Because like we say, when it comes down to it, I don't want to know the answers. It's just kind of nice to know that there is a reason behind a lot of what we do. And for me personally, if I know the reason, I'm less likely to blame it on somebody else.
Yeah.
Like when I'm upset and my nervous system starts to go haywire, instead of going, what are you doing? Stop doing that. I'm going to go, why is my nervous system doing that? Like, what's up? Why am I getting so worked up about that comment somebody made? And then I'll back up a little bit and I'll go, oh, yeah, you're feeling pretty bad about that. And when they said that, your nervous system reacted to it. Don't take it out on them. Like if I walk into a classroom, one of the things I'll say to my students is, my bad day's not your problem. It's not your problem. You didn't do it. So if I don't choose to have bad days. They hate it when I say that. They hate it when I say I don't have bad days. You have to have bad days. I go, no. I have bad moments. Like a moment will occur and I might struggle with it. And if I'm struggling with it, that doesn't make it a bad day. That means I'm struggling with it.
Bad day is so final, you can't really do anything about it.
So it's a bad life.
Exactly.
Like if somebody says I'm having a bad life, I said, well, is it good ever?
Yeah.
Is any part of it good?
That plays into the notion of, I always talk about identity. I think the human identity it's got to be the cause of the majority of our problems on Earth. We're always searching for this identity, and we're always trying to protect this identity. And so people can often identify with bad days, right? Like I'm a victim on this day. It gives me attention. It sort of validates what I'm going through, elevates the juices flowing through your body, and so it's easier to sort of say I have a bad day than to say, well, I'm kind of having a shitty moment, but I'm gonna work through it and get back on top of my game and have a good good outcomes for the rest of the day.
Well, think about there's times where you have a bad day where if you had a good day, it would have meant somebody else had a bad day. Like you just played in a championship game and you lost the big championship and you're having a bad day, but if you flipped and became that other person, if they had lost, they would have had a bad day. The issue is that you went out and you competed. Isn't it great that you have the ability to play a game, or do martial arts or whatever it is? You have the ability to do that, and when you go up against that other person, it's almost like you want to honor that other person for working hard to then compete against you. Thank you for giving me somebody to test myself against. As opposed to, oh my God, I can't lose to this guy.
Right.
Like if I do lose to this guy, how do I beat him next time?
That's why I've always been bad at on sports teams. So I remember playing baseball with one of the companies I used to work with, and it was always like this thing of it's like, I'm just having fun swinging the ball around. I didn't have any investment in us winning a title. I'm like, this is just for fun, right?
Right.
And
motion detected at the front door.
I had to turn her down a little bit. But so it was, I'd always have this smile on my face even after a loss, and the team members would get pissed at me. It's like, no, it was not fun. We did not do good. And I'm like, well, it was fun. I don't really play baseball, but this was fun. I had a good time swinging some balls around, being on the field.
Yeah, you can't. I've coached for a long time. You can't just value winning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you've got to value. Like I said before, if we went out there and we gave 100% and we tried, let's walk away with our heads up.
Well, that's what Michael Jordan said. That's what made him into such a great player. While everyone else was on there focusing on how to beat him, he was focusing on how I can improve myself.
Right.
And that's why he put the focus on his game and improved his game. And winning was an outcome. It wasn't the focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's that. We talked about Carol Dweck earlier. That's what she called the growth mindset.
Okay.
As opposed to the fixed mindset.
Okay.
The fixed mindset is I am who I am.
Yeah.
If I win, I lose. It is who I am.
Yeah.
The growth mindset is this is who I am today.
Okay.
What'll I be tomorrow?
Yeah. So
there's that Zen saying, your desire to win drains you of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when it takes your focus off being better at the thing itself.
Yeah.
Because for me, whenever I get together with my training partners and train, I always feel like a kid again, actually. Because even though we're doing maybe some set patterns, but there's so much stuff that's spontaneous and where I could be creative that I just feel like a kid again every time I've done it. And I've done a freaking jab thousands and thousands of times.
Right.
It still feels good every time I do it.
Yeah. And it's an experience.
So I want to ask you too. We're talking about psychologists, and that makes me think of philosophers, right? That's where psychology came from, was the field of philosophy. So, what do you think of some of the one of my favorite philosophers of today, if you can call him a philosopher, is Eckhart Tolle. You familiar with this guy? Yes. But I don't remember anything specifically I read. Okay. It's like 20 years ago. Oh, okay. Wow, it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years. Okay. I was just going to ask what your thoughts are on.
Well, give me some ideas of what you're talking about. What parts of his philosophy?
His philosophy is being in the present moment, and that you can reduce. He talks a lot about identity as well, and being able to reduce the problems in your life is to be in the present moment and step outside of your ego as much as you can. Let the ego sort of function and do its job, but be in the present moment, and then problems sort of dissolve away.
The thing that's interesting about that from a psychology perspective is I'm trying to think of what they call that. There's a phrase for it. Your default mode. Your default state of mind is a social comparison state of mind.
Yeah.
So what happens when you're not doing anything, when you don't have anything that's occupying you, your mind goes into how are my social relationships going?
Yeah.
And did I forget to pay this bill? I don't want to be poor because people will look down on me for being poor, or people will look down on me for not having a home. So our default mode is to go into comparing ourselves to other humans.
Sure.
And mindfulness means taking that default mode offline.
Yeah.
Because when we are not doing anything, we'll go into that state of, am I good enough?
Yeah.
And the only way I know if I'm good enough is if I look at you and I say, okay, how am I compared to him? And how am I compared to him? How am I compared to her? Right? And then I see where I am. And that's natural. We can't
Raj is in the background, by the way.
But we can't stop doing that. Well, let me put it that differently. It's hard to stop doing that. We are always in social comparison mode.
Yeah.
So what happens is when we are able to be in the present moment, it means that we can take our attention and put it on an activity. Like you can put your attention on breathing.
Yeah.
But after a while, you're not going to say, wow, I really breathed today.
Yeah.
At some point you're going to want to say, what did I create? What did I do? You know anything about flow psychology?
No.
So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi did this flow psychology within the last 30 years. And it is essentially that idea of a flow state of mind. It could be in martial arts, it could be in art, it could be in music.
Sure.
But it's doing something so fully that you lose track of time. Right? You're in the zone, so to speak. And that's being in the present moment. But it's that idea of being so engaged in something. That's why, like I said, when people will say to me, what do you do for fun? I'll tell them I wrote about 14 pages today. Okay. And I was really engaged in what I was writing about. And that was totally enjoyable to me. Somebody was serving me coffee and I was writing about something I care about. Or I created a vocabulary sheet for my soccer team. Sure. It's a flow experience. Working in my brother's yard, my mom's yard, that kind of thing. I get into a flow. I'm working, I'm creating, So like being in that present moment, I mean, you can do it. You can do it sitting, but you can also do it living.
Yeah, I like that. That's a solid form of meditation, to meditate while you're actively moving around. Being more conscious in what you're doing can in itself be a meditation.
And then the thing that you create, or the improved relationship, whatever it is you're working on, they are an outcome of that engagement of the mind. So you're living in the present moment, but you're also doing. Okay. So an artist can be in his or her present moment.
Right. Yeah, totally does talk about that kind of stuff too.
So it's not just about, like, people say, oh, I hate meditation. You just sit there and do nothing. And I say, yeah, but you'll sit and watch like mindless television.
Exactly.
And you'll be miserable. You go like, this is so boring. So well, do something else. But they don't know, like, I don't know, there's nothing else to do. You might remember, I've said this for years. Kids will say there's nothing to do in Farmington Hills. And I'll say, you go any place where there's 100,000 people and you tell me there's nothing to do, I'm going to say the problem is you. That's it.
No, that's true.
What they mean is there isn't an arcade that somebody built that I can go and while away hours.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of encountered that in China. So I lived there for almost 4 years. It was interesting to see people say, oh, there's nothing to do in this town. Or, because people tend to look for the thing to do. And it's usually some form of nightlife. Or when you're traveling abroad, it's like tourist spots. I really found the most enjoyable thing to do is to walk around the society, to see what their stores are like. What do these people do when they're taking downtime, when they're having fun, playing, like they're in the fields playing badminton or something. At night, you see these old ladies. You can check out one of our videos. You see these old ladies practicing dance moves in the streets. It's like that's quite beautiful. Like it's really abnormal to us here, and to see that there was fascinating. Right. Just to walk around the city. What do the lights look like at nighttime? The buildings, everything, the structures, the architecture. To see and capture that stuff in the normal day-to-day life. Yeah, that was.
Do you know the concept of habituation?
Explain a little more.
Habituation. So anything that we're around for a long period of time, we get used to. And then we get bored with it. So like if at one point in my life I owned a Camaro. When I first got it, I was like, first new car ever. After a while, it was just a car. Right? I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I liked it, but it was just a car. Anything that we're around long enough, we get bored with. And kind of that present moment thing is seeing it anew. Right? So, like, say, for example, we do the whole wonderful life thing. Where we say, imagine that you're in this moment right now and you're not having the greatest time. What if you went 60 years forward, you passed away? If you could come back to this moment and sit with your mother and father, would it become more interesting? Instead of just going, oh, mom and dad are so boring. Right? Because it's not that the event is so boring, it's that you're refusing to see it in a different way, a new way. Right. And it's hard to do. It's hard to look at it creatively. Or when you get used to somebody that you care about. What is the saying? I forget exactly what it is. Familiarity breeds contempt. The more familiar you get with something, the more you're kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. The brain just the brain's purpose is to calculate information and to put it in a box where it recognizes it and can process as fast as possible.
Sure.
And then moves on to the next thing.
Right.
So,
Well, and one thing you have to realize as an educator or as a student is that learning is innately fun. It's innately fun. School should never be boring.
Yeah.
It should never be. Like you talk about doing something new in martial arts, right? Doing something innovative. You get this whole dopamine release every time you do something or you learn something. Every one of us, we are inspired to learn by our brains that respond with ding, 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 you got it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're in a learning environment where that's not happening, the kid isn't the problem.
Yeah.
The learning environment is the problem.
Yeah. So that makes me want to ask you, so have you heard of determinism? So there's a guy named Sam Harris. He talks about this a bit, and I don't want to say Sam if it's if you're a lot of what he was speaking about was that we don't really have free will, that things are just sort of everything is predetermined based on our circumstances. I don't know if I prescribe to that. I kind of think, those ways of being inspired, and being creative, that's how we break out. I don't think it's totally false, but I do think there is free will to sort of break out and create, new paths that determine things in the future.
I guess I would ask, does it matter?
That's true.
Because if you experience it as free will, who cares if it is because events led to it?
Sure.
Like somebody might say, when we were talking about Einstein earlier, his teachers couldn't make Einstein, but it is often thought that if the inventor who invented something weren't alive, somebody else probably would have invented it at that point, because the scientific world had gotten to the point where it was ready for that.
Sure.
Right? It was ready for somebody to come up with that next level thinking. So, yes, Albert Einstein was great, but the theory is somebody else might have also stumbled upon those ideas because humanity was ready for that.
Yeah.
So, did he, have free will when he did this, or was he the mechanism for that idea to come out because humanity had been developing it? Who cares? It came out. It's part of us. And so, like for me, I'd like to say, if someone says I'm great, what I want to say, opposed to what I used to say, is thank you, Mom, Dad, Grandpa, Grandma, for setting a safe foundation for me early on in life that I could get to this point where I have this sense of stability. Not, I'm so wonderful, right? Because I feel better about the idea that the world created me than I'm so awesome. Like, to me, that's a lot more fun, because then as a teacher, I say, let me be that drop in the water that inspires others, right? I'm a part of their lives. I am not the thing in their lives. I don't want to be that thing. It's one, that's too much stress, right? Too much responsibility. And two, who knows who you're going to inspire? Just be inspiring if you can.
Mr. Russell, I see clients, I'm a psychotherapist, and I will say to them, did you make that shirt? Did you make those pants?
Right.
Did you grow what you just ate today?
Right.
Do you know how many millions of people and resources that have supported you just today?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And now within that, you're going to get this big ego. We are interdependent. None of us are independent or dependent.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah, this idea that because I paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
I have, I'm entitled to all that and not
Well,
think of everyone else that made that possible.
Right. And I'll joke. Somebody will say, hey, I like that shirt. And I go, yeah, I made it myself. Because I mean, I might be able to say, all right, so my fashion style is not terrible, but, outside of that, there's a flip side to that our actions have repercussions. Like if I buy this shirt and this shirt was made in a less than safe way as far as the atmosphere is concerned, etc., then I'm responsible. Well, you didn't know. Well, you maybe could know. Maybe you should know.
Okay. Always an inspiration, man. This guy. This has been awesome. Anything else anybody want to bring up? Or?
I am so thankful that you came.
Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's so funny to think about it because we tend to think of the most influential people as people that they get the spotlight on television. The people that make like this massive imprint in human history. But you're at high school, and it's not to take that away, but like your high school teacher. Look at how genius this is. I mean, this has been one of the most profound experiences that we've had on this show.
Definitely.
And I really, again, this has been awesome. We're gonna have you out again.
All right.
We haven't
I have
again.
the seat today.
When you say Mr. Russell, we're gonna be like, he inspired all of
Exactly.
us.
Spread the experience.
I appreciate it.
All right. Is there any other shout out or anything you wanna give on camera?
Oh, it's like I said before. Thank you, Grandpa, Grandma, Mom, Dad. I mean, thank you to the people that helped make me. Thank you to my teachers that helped make me. My coaches, I could go right down the line. All kinds of people that made it possible for me to have the opportunity to be who I am. I am so far from perfect, but I don't care. I'm having a good time.
Awesome.
Yep.
I dig that.
All right.
I dig that. Good job.
Thank
All right,
you,
guys.
Mr.
Thanks. Let's do that.
Russell.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us on Easy Awakenings. We will talk to you. We'll see you soon. Have a good one.